This is a fictional story, but if this happened to you, my children tried to sell my house behind my back, not knowing my late wife had left a legal trap just for them. I was 74 years old when my 3 children decided I was no longer useful to them. I spent my whole life as a carpenter. I built our family home with these 2 hands, one room at a time. My wife used to joke that every wall in that house had a piece of me inside it. But what she never told me was that she'd left something else inside that house too. Something that would change everything. We raised our children there. Their heights were still marked on the kitchen doorframe. After she passed, that house was the only thing that still made me feel close to her. Then one Sunday, my oldest son Daniel showed up, with my daughter Sarah and my youngest, Yusuf, right behind him. Nobody touched the tea I made. "Dad," Daniel said, "we think it's time you moved somewhere safer." Safer? I almost laughed. Sarah slid a brochure across the table. An expensive retirement home. She smiled at me like she'd already made the decision for me. I knew exactly what they wanted. "We can sell the house," Daniel said, "and split the money between us. 40 years I spent building that house. They spent 5 minutes deciding what it was worth." I said no. Daniel got angry. I stayed calm. But what happened 3 days later, I never saw coming. I was outside fixing the garden fence when I heard Sarah on the phone. She didn't know I could hear her. "The old man is still refusing," she said. Old man, my own daughter. Then she said something that made my blood run cold. "We need to get him into the home, before he changes anything." Before I changed anything. Like I was already gone. Like I was in their way. That night, I made one phone call. A call that would completely flip the situation. But I didn't know that yet. I called my late wife's old lawyer, a man named Mr. Kareem. I hadn't spoken to him in 10 years. When I told him what was happening, he went silent. Then he asked me a question that made me drop the phone. "Did your wife ever tell you she created a separate legal trust before she died?" A trust? I had no idea what he was talking about. He told me to come to his office. First thing in the morning. I barely slept that night. The next day, Mr. Kareem opened an old cabinet and pulled out a thick folder, buried under years of dust. "This," he said, "has been waiting for you." Inside was my wife's handwriting, a letter, written just for me. My hands were shaking as I started to read. She said that before she died, she'd grown worried. Not that our children were bad people, but that one day, money might matter more to them than family. So she did something, quietly, without telling anyone. She placed the house into a legal trust. I was the only person alive with any authority over it. My children couldn't sell it, couldn't force me out, couldn't touch a single brick. But then, I read the last paragraph, and what it said changed everything. She had added one condition. After I died, the house wouldn't automatically go to any of them. It would only go to whichever child proved they actually cared. Not whoever offered the most money, not whoever shouted the loudest, whoever showed up. I sat there in complete silence. Mr. Kareem looked at me and said, "Your wife knew her children better than they know themselves." I didn't say a word to my kids, not for 2 whole weeks. They thought their plan was working perfectly. Then Daniel called another family meeting. This time he walked in holding property documents. "We found a buyer," he said, almost proud of himself. I looked at the papers. "Congratulations. So you'll move into the home?" he asked. I nodded slowly. "If that's what you want." He relaxed. He actually thought he'd won. He had no idea what was coming. That Friday, my children drove me to the lawyer's office themselves. They expected me to sign the sale. Instead, Mr. Kareem slid a different document across the table. Daniel's face changed instantly. "What is this?" I said nothing. I let the lawyer explain it for me. The house was never for sale. It never even belonged to them in the first place. Sarah's face went white. Yusuf just stared at the floor. Daniel looked at me. "You knew this whole time." "I knew before you ever brought me here." Nobody spoke for what felt like a full minute. Then Daniel asked the question I'd been waiting for. "Why didn't you just tell us?" I looked at each of them, one by one. "Because I wanted to know if you loved me, without knowing what I owned." Silence. No one had an answer. That night, all three came back to my house. But this time, they weren't talking about the property. They were talking to me. Daniel apologized. Sarah cried. Yusuf admitted he never agreed with the plan. He'd just been too afraid to say it out loud. I forgave them. But forgiveness didn't mean handing them what they wanted. I told them the house stays a family home. Nobody sells it. Nobody treats it like an investment. And when I'm gone, whoever actually showed up, whoever actually cared, gets to keep it. Months passed. Something changed, slowly. They started visiting again. Not perfectly, but they stopped mentioning the house completely. They brought groceries. Fixed the fence, properly this time. Sat with me for tea, like we used to. One evening, Daniel helped me repair the old wooden bench I built for his mother years ago. He stared at it for a long time. Then, quietly, he said, "Dad, I finally get it. Why Mom protected this place." I smiled. Why? He looked around, the bench, the fence, the house behind us. Because it was never about the house. He was right. The house was never the inheritance. The family was. And the hardest lesson my children ever learned is that love can't be bought, sold, or signed away on paper. They thought they were sending an old man away. Instead, they almost lost their father. And that's something no amount of money could ever buy back.